Hi guys, so in this video I'm doing an illustration of Nicholas. Now I actually did this video back in mid-September, and the reason why I'm uploading it now is because there were other videos that I wanted to get out, sketchbook updates and everything else, and I just thought this would be a great extra video just in case I don't have time or I'm busy with uni work, and I thought this would be a good illustration because I wanted to do an illustration with Nicholas because I do sketches of him, but I never really do full-scale illustrations of background characters, and since Nicholas is a huge part of Loki's story, I thought it'd be really cool to do that. Now, as you can see, I'm using watercolour. Now, I have been loving using watercolour lately. It has been my main material to go to. Yes, I still use marker, but I've been getting more used to watercolour and it's just been so much fun. I've actually even told my teacher that I've been getting into watercolour, my university tutor, and he's like, oh, that's great. So it's getting to the point where you can just pick it up and you can just go with it without having to worry about where to put the watercolour, what to do with it, and basically going slow. You can literally just churn out as much artwork as you like with this medium, and so I'm really enjoying it. Now, the watercolours that I'm using are my Creelando watercolours inside a Royal Landnickel palette that you can actually fold up, and that's on the left hand side, whereas on the right hand side they are my Koh-i-Noor Annie Linky ink-based watercolours, and I've been loving them so much. Their pigment is so vibrant, it's so vivid that it's amazing. And how I did his cape is I actually mixed some of that pigment of the Koh-i-Noor with the pigment of the Creelando. Now, the Koh-i-Noor ink-based watercolours, they have a very different consistency to the regular watercolours, and my Creelando ones are actually tubed watercolours. This was a really fun illustration, and I did this picture over 2 streams. I did the sketching and then the tracing onto a decently thick piece of paper in one stream, and then the next stream I did all the watercolour start to finish, and it was fun. Originally I was not going to have Dahlia in the background, but I decided that I would have Dahlia in the background because the thought came to me while I was doing the painting. I was like, oh, maybe this could be Dahlia and Nicholas's first meeting, and Dahlia's mindset could be, what is this guy doing in my murder forest? Now, if you don't know Dahlia is Tatty 1907's character. She is a bit of a murderous character, so that's why I said murder forest. And yes, so now I'm painting the trees. I actually kind of went backwards and forwards with which areas I was actually doing, and this is what I like to do. I like to do various different areas at a time, depending on how dry the paper is, how wet the watercolour still is. It really depends. So with the trees, I started doing the trees, and I've been loving the way I do trees. I don't know why, it's just, I think they look really effective, and my technique to doing them in my watercolours is actually using purple. Now, I know it sounds crazy to do purple trees, but it really does help because I'm using purple as kind of an offset shading colour to actually help it, and I use brown over the top of the purple, and it creates this effect which makes it look more natural. I don't know the science behind it, like the science or whatever it is behind it, but it makes it look so much more natural and so much more impactful. Honestly, I just wing it every time I do watercolour, but there is a technique for me doing trees. So actually, I forgot to say right at the beginning that I followed the same sort of watercolour style as I did when I did my collaboration with Jenna Drawing, and I followed the same kind of principle with the trees and everything else, because it was the same sort of setting, but it was a darker atmosphere. And I tried to add a hint of contrast by having the background of Nicholas, like right behind him, kind of like where the sun is breaking through the trees, whereas where Dahlia is, like towards that direction, towards the right side, it's more dark, it's more gloomy. So yes. This illustration took a long time because watercolour, the one thing people always forget with watercolour, and every time people ask me about my watercolour technique, I'm just like, patience. Patience is a virtue with watercolours. You cannot rush watercolours. It is something that you just can't rush. It really is, because if you rush it, you run the risk of actually smearing it all over the page. And sometimes just being patient with it and just actually working with it effectively is just to be patient. So the leaves. Okay, we've gone on to the leaves now. The leaves, I actually did the same thing as my collaboration with Jenna, and I just did it with slightly darker tones and also more pigmented tones as well from my Koh-i-Noor set. And I just dabbed on the brush, and I use quite a big brush. I think it was a 5 or a 7. Or do brushes even run in those sizes? I don't know. I'm sorry. I did this about a month ago, so I'm a little bit confused. But Nicholas's birthday was September 15th. And ironically, it was actually Undertale Day as well. I didn't realise this. So when somebody told me that September 15th was Undertale Day, I was like, okay, let's make an Undertale reference when I was sketching this drawing out. Can you see the Undertale reference? Because if you can't, it's completely understandable, because it's very subtle. The Undertale reference is so subtle that you wouldn't know it's there. But if you know what it is, it's obvious. So, just to clarify, people know what the Undertale reference is and they think it's obvious. So the Undertale reference that I used is Nicholas's pose. Which character uses that pose in Undertale? Why, it's Asgore with his staff, or with his trident. I don't know what that thing is, but you know, his magic wand. But yeah, it's his pose, and it's very obviously Asgore. Once you know the reference, it's very easy to guess, but it's so subtle that you can hardly tell it's there if you don't know. That's why I think the commentaries are actually really cool, because they can actually tell you more about a piece of artwork than you think is actually there. And the one thing that I learnt in university and kind of had a feeling about in the first place was that there's sometimes hidden meanings behind artworks and you don't notice it at the first glance, and I think that's what's really cool about artwork. You can look at it a second time and actually see things you didn't see before. So yes, that is the end of my commentary. I've been talking for about 5 minutes straight now. So yes, I hope you enjoyed this video. Happy birthday to Nick from last month. I'm uploading this a month later because all the other videos that had to come out before this one. But yes, happy belated birthday, my character. I like Nicholas because he's got this character. He's kind of good, he's kind of bad. He's a mix of both, and you don't know which side you're gonna get on what day. And that's kind of what I like, the unpredictability of my character. So I will see you guys in my next video. Hope you enjoyed it, as I said before. Bye guys!